Akron, Ohio, representing Team Popping the Boys, the headline god, Jeremy Lambert, and his co-host, speaking out of Atlanta, Georgia, representing more than one royal family, the king of indie viewing, Steven Jensen. And this is the Spotlight on Fightful.
Welcome everyone to the Spotlight here on Fightful. I'm Jeremy Lambert, that's Steven Jensen, and shout out as always to Big Dick MLJ for the intro. Plenty to talk about on this Thursday, May 28th. We got AEW Double or Nothing to review. We got WWE Clash in Italy to discuss. We got Joel Pearl making people angry, and we've got some MyAEW news as well. We're going to save the Joel stuff for last. I'm going to be honest with you, Jensen. I don't have a lot to say. I've said a lot about it this week, so I'm going to leave the floor to you on that one. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just saying, I don't have like a whole lot to add to it. I just thought it was an interesting topic. We have I actually haven't heard your take on it much. I saw a couple of your tweets, but I was just, obviously he's a friend of ours. So I thought that was very interesting this week. We needed a topic for the other category, and I was like, well, this kind of fits. So yeah. I threw it in there.
No, fair. How you doing otherwise?
Doing good. Had a good birthday weekend. Thanks everybody, and yourself and your wife for both reaching out, saying happy birthday. Appreciate that. And we'll talk about that a little bit also when it comes to the Double or Nothing recap here in a second, because I had a few friends over, and I like to gauge what people like and don't like, especially non-wrestling fans when I watch these kind of shows. So I have some good feedback and interesting feedback, I think, for wrestling fans when it comes to, kind of what my friends thought of Double or Nothing, what I thought of Double or Nothing, and all that kind of stuff. So it was a good weekend, and that's pretty much all I got. I know you don't want to talk NBA. We both need we need Wemby to have a bad game. You're much more invested than I am. I completely understand that. This would be like the Vikings being in the Super Bowl and you trying to discuss it with me. I completely get it. But I just for the record, I hope Wemby has a very, very bad game today. Hopefully he gets ejected early like he did in a previous series, and that would help both of us. So good luck tonight. That's all I've got. How about you, man?
I don't want to talk sports. We will be finishing at 8:30 or sooner, because the game starts at 8:30, and then I'm gonna, plot my funeral after that. But I'm good. Summer has started. Spending days at the pool, and that's about it. That's what I'm doing with my time nowadays, and of course watching wrestling. But glad you had a good birthday weekend I guess, and everything turned out good there.
Yeah, appreciate that. And appreciate everyone who is here in the chat tonight. We will read that throughout the show as well. I'm interested for y'all's feedback, specifically when it comes to Double or Nothing. Of course, I'm interested in your predictions for Clash in Paris as well. Sorry, Clash in Italy. What are they calling it?
Clash in Italy.
Yeah. Clash in Italy. And I saw Cody was there and doing some media, caught a few interviews actually earlier today, catching up on some stuff. So, I'm interested in y'all's predictions for that too, but I'm especially interested in your thoughts on Double or Nothing. And we'll talk a little bit of Joel Pearl. We'll talk, the MyAEW news I thought was really big too, as somebody who, has covered indie wrestling for as long as I have. It's always interesting when a new kind of player pops up in that space, the streaming space for, potential indie wrestling. So shout out to 1FW and our friends over there, of course. So hopefully we can get Jameson on soon. I got to reach out to him. Because they got Summer Stage coming up also soon. So I was going to reach out to him closer to then also, because I definitely want to go to that show. So anyway, hopefully we'll get him on to talk about that soon. And, congratulations to QT Marshall and the whole squad over there for that. So we got a lot of good stuff to talk about in today's show.
Let's get into it. Let's start with AEW.
Over 1 million fans and a great number in the demo tuned in. It was a great show, and I think it's been a run of great shows.
AEW Double or Nothing this past Sunday. This was a great show, in the words of Tony Khan. I thought every single match on this show was great to excellent. The top matches to me were Swerve and Bandito. I thought that was one of the best finishes. I so much loved the counter into the 21 plex, into the cop killer, and then the standing house call. Takeshita and Okada was awesome. Darby and MJF was awesome. I love the I Quit match, the tag team I Quit match. That was awesome. And Ospreay and Samoa Joe. Like, all those matches were great. Yeah, I thought every single match on this card was great. Jensen, how about you? Did you think this is what a lot of people are considering the best AEW pay-per-view ever?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely on the conversation for best AEW pay-per-view ever. I think it's easily the best pro wrestling pay-per-view I've seen this year. And obviously I have like a little bit of bias when it comes to like GCW and spring break and that kind of stuff, but that's fun for me in a different type of way. You know what I mean? Like the actual like quality of in-ring wrestling matches you got from top to bottom on a Double or Nothing really is next level. And it's you know, and they have, I think MJF said it himself in an interview recently, they have an embarrassment of riches as far as the roster, because you just named everything you named without even talking about the entire show just then. And then we also, you know, Hangman Page isn't there. Mercedes Moné isn't there. I don't know what Mercedes' status is, but you know what I mean? Like there's like some really big players that are not on this show still. Like that's how good this roster is. So just wanted to throw that out there. As far as the actual show itself, I couldn't agree more. I thought this was awesome. You know, I thought even I'm trying to kind of decide where to start here, because, you know, I wanted to let everyone know, especially like kind of how my friends felt too while they were watching this, and give you all their perspective. So, my brother was over, who watches wrestling fairly often, and then some friends who are casual at best, like actually popped pretty hard whenever I told them that Sting had actually been wrestling. They had no idea he had been wrestling for all these years, pretty much since WCW. And so I showed him some Sting highlights with Darby. And one of my buddies that was here was actually at AEW in Atlanta with me when they first came, like that show when Cody did the moonsault off the cage to Wardlow. So that was the only experience he had watching AEW before, but he remembered Darby from that show because Darby had a big return that night. Remember Darby and the skateboard. So when I was explaining like the link between him and Sting and all this stuff, they were actually like, man, I wish I would have actually kept up with that. That actually sounds awesome. So I got them kind of excited for the show before it even started. And then once they realized, you know, we watched the pre-show, but once they realized the opening match on the pay-per-view was going to be that tag team match, and they were like, Edge and Christian, like what? But, you know, it wasn't one of those like, oh, really? They're still doing it. It was like, oh, damn, like these guys are still doing it. Like there was, you know, and they were recognizable. They had an awesome opening match. Like that's the kind of, and we had the title change. I mean, that was, and also within the restrictions or whatever you want to call it of them being in New York, or there was a major lack of like blood and gore in comparison to most AEW pay-per-views on the show, which also I think is a good thing. And this is coming from somebody who, you know, I've covered deathmatch wrestling for close to a decade for Fightful. I'm an advocate for, you know, different styles of wrestling and stuff, but I guarantee you AEW has done things on pay-per-view before, like, you know, for instance, like the syringes through the cheek and stuff. I guarantee you there are people who gave AEW a try, saw that, and then said, I'm never going to do this. I'm never going to watch this again. Whereas I think if you want to build new fans, I don't think you need, I mean, there's obviously like a place for blood in wrestling. And I think there's, you know, in like the Texas death matches and stuff, this kind of stuff we're expecting to see as fans, but I don't think AEW really needs it. And they kind of proved it on a show like this. Like we had a little bit of blood, but it was hard way blood that, you know, made total sense. Like Darby busting his head open, jumping off of the Tron, basically. I mean, so anyway, I wanted to throw that out there too. I thought this is the kind of show where I think if my friends would have seen a syringe through the cheek or like, you know, skewers in someone's forehead or whatever, I don't know if they would have enjoyed it as much. They'd be kind of watching with like, you know, through their fingers, kind of like, what is this, you know? because I've had friends over before when I've had GCW on, and sometimes they're like, "What the hell are you watching? Like, what is this?" Because they're seeing people take gusset plates to the head and stuff. So they're like, you know what I mean? So I just want to throw that all out there too. I think this all kind of went hand in hand to working well for the pay-per-view and kind of the fan experience, especially for like casual fans who had never really seen the show before. So, and then the only other match that I'll mention right now before throwing it back to you, because I don't want to talk forever without getting your feedback, but it's worth mentioning favorite match of the night, I think for everybody who was over here, was Takeshita versus Okada. And my friends had never seen either of them before that one match. And both of them, by the time that was over, they were like their two favorite wrestlers. You know what I mean? So I want to put that over as well, because that's just a straight up, obviously there was a rivalry and stuff, but even without knowing much of the backstory, just seeing that match made new fans out of people, so I think that there's a lot to say about that. And those are two non-Americans that didn't cut like these long English promos talking trash back and forth to sell this. My friends just saw these guys get in a ring and wrestle, and their minds were blown. So just want to throw that out there too. How do you feel about all that? Oh, and also, sorry, one last thing. Their favorite wrestler was Bandito of the entire show. So I want to say that also. Sorry, go ahead, Jeremy.
The Takeshita Okada match, I can definitely see how someone who maybe isn't familiar would absolutely love that match, because that's a match where the story was there going into it, but they kind of cooled off the story for so long because it was really hot in like December. Then Takeshita like was in Japan for a while. Even Okada was in Japan for a while. So they missed some time, and it didn't feel like a very hot like angle going into it. But the crowd, I gotta give full marks to the crowd for the entire show, because they were there for the entire show. The fact that they're chanting like "holy shit" before they lock up and everything, it's not a first time match, mind you. It's not Brian and Kenny who are finally facing again after decades or whatever. Now they're doing a serious match after they did a comedy match in PWG and stuff. Like, they just wrestled in December. Like they just wrestled 5 months ago. So, but the crowd was there for this entire show. And that match in particular stood out to me, on top of like just how good it was. But the fact that the crowd was there so much for everything of this match, despite the match feeling a little bit cold, I can see someone new watching that being like super impressed with like everything they were doing. But also, you know how it is, Jensen, like when everybody in the building is into something, like you are into it as well. So the fact that the crowd was super into that match, I could see people in your living room or wherever also be like, yeah, this is the greatest shit ever.
Yeah, I mean, and to be completely honest, one of the matches I show pretty much anybody who is interested in checking out wrestling for the first time or knows like very little about it, I almost always refer to Rock versus Hulk Hogan. Like, and usually part of that has to do with most people know who Hulk Hogan and The Rock are, so like they're at least familiar with those names usually. But that's the kind of thing where like the crowd, you listen, because those guys are doing hardly anything and the crowd's going completely insane. And I'm like, this is what professional wrestling is. Like, if you can get people invested to this level where these guys can go out here and barely do anything, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of what this is all about. But you can also achieve that by having an absolute banger. I mean, I'd imagine anyone who rates matches rated Okada Takeshita as, 5 stars or 7 stars or whatever the limit is. Like that's, and that's with that plus the crowd, the match itself plus the crowd participation, like you said, and the investment there and everyone being on board for it. And there was also moves in this match that I've never really seen. I don't think I've seen Okada do a Rainmaker to the apron before.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've seen. Yeah, I don't know if I've seen some of those counters to the Rainmaker either. Like Takeshita coming back with his own on the just certain stuff like that where I was like, damn, even in a match that we've seen before, but we also knew that they left meat on the bone from that last match. Like the last time they wrestled, we were like, okay, that was like an appetizer. We knew that they were capable of what we saw at Double or Nothing, and they totally delivered. That match was awesome, and I think Takeshita winning was the right move as well. So, and then you had the turn afterwards, also the return of Protostar Kyle Fletcher, and then you also had him turning on Takeshita. But also teasing, him and Okada will happen at some point too. I mean, this whole Callis family will eventually kind of fall apart. And there's so many members. There's so many ways you can go with this. But anyways, I thought the match itself was awesome. The aftermath setup, I'd imagine it's going to be Protostar versus Takeshita for the international title at All In, I would imagine, which is going to be incredible.
I don't know if they're going to wait until All In. That feels like it's going to be Forbidden Door, because Forbidden Door is the next show. All In's not until August. That's a ways away to stretch this thing. Maybe you do a rematch at that point, but yeah, I don't think they're gonna stretch this all the way to All In.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a big enough match that they could stretch it out that long. But I know what you're saying as well. And I mean, we said it before, embarrassment of riches, the amount of talent on the roster, how big the Don Callis family itself is. Who knows between now and All In, but I feel like that's a big match, and I'm looking forward to that one. And so I mean, everything about that. Also, I mentioned Bandito was a big favorite as well from everyone who was watching, and that 21 plex from the mat I love that. I love that variation of it. I hope he does that more often. I think it's just a way more believable version than people holding the middle rope and waiting for him. So I like that. And they were popping for everything. Like when he picked up Swerve with one hand and everything, like gorilla pressed him. Someone said Ultimate Warrior in my place. Someone called that out. I was like, someone say Ultimate Warrior? Like someone remembered Ultimate Warrior doing a gorilla press, which I thought was so funny. It was so random. And of course they thought Swerve was cool as well. And they liked his moveset a lot also. Like they weren't expecting a Vertebreaker or Cop Killer, as you called it. Go with any bit. I learned it as the Vertebreaker, but of course, Shattered Homicide.
Give him a shout out to
I get it. But Cody uses that move occasionally as well. Beat Anthony Ogogo with it in AEW, if you guys remember. But anyways, I thought the whole match was great. The house call from the shoulders was gnarly also. I mean, there was some cool variations there. So I thought that match was great. And once again, two guys that my buddies had never seen before, and they were fans of both of them after that match. And also were, I doubt they'll watch. Let me put it this way. I doubt that they'll watch weekly, just because I don't think that wrestling is something that they're going to, add to their weekly, schedule or whatever. But if I invited them over for Forbidden Door and All In, they'd probably come over, and it's just one of those things where it's like, it's cool to see people get somewhat in back. I bet if I hit up the same people when I was like, Bandito's wrestling Okada, they'd be like, yeah, I want to watch that. You know what I mean? So, made some new fans just off of those matches right there because they were so good. Told such a good story. Oh, and sorry, also, I was going to mention it being a part of the tournament too. I think they're actually interested to know who's going to win the tournament.
I could see Bandito being someone's, if you've never watched, someone's favorite wrestler, because he has a cool look with the mask and everything. I think wrestling fans or non-wrestling fans, I feel like they identify with maybe three kind of things, and it's either you're a big jack dude like Hulk Hogan or stuff because they know Hulk Hogan and everything, or it's face paint and mask. If you have that, oh, that's pro wrestling. You have this style of face paint. Oh, you have this style of mask. That's pro wrestling. So Bandito has a cool mask and everything. He has a coolness factor about him. And then when you watch his matches, he's kind of a smaller dude, so he does all the cool flippy stuff that people love. But then he has the insane strength as well. And it's wait a second, this dude who does all the flippy stuff also does a one hand power slam, and also does a lifting German suplex and everything. So yeah, I could see if you've never watched wrestling and you see Bandito, you would think he's the coolest dude ever. I mean, he is pretty cool. So I'm not even trying to talk down about him, but yeah, I can totally see that. So it doesn't super surprise me that they latched on to Bandito after seeing him.
Right. And this is also just kind of just more examples for whatever it's worth of most of the people that the casual, we're just going to call them, not even casual, just like the non-wrestling fans here attached to, like, it wasn't like they liked MJF. They appreciated the heel gimmick. Like they liked his trash talk and stuff, and they liked Darby as well. But I mean, most of the people they were drawn to weren't like these. They were almost all, I mean, foreign wrestlers. Like they weren't like the traditional, like what we would have watched in the Attitude Era. You know what I mean? Like the wrestlers that they had seen last were WWF, WCW, ECW wrestlers. This is like a totally different. I mean, they were watching maybe a bit of the cruiserweight division back in the day, if they even remember any of that. But, you know, it's one of those things where it was like, I didn't know what to expect as far as what they, and I know AEW's roster, you know, kind of skews, you know, kind of smaller anyways. Like you don't have like a ton of like huge muscle, you know, bodybuilder looking dudes. You have some, but not a ton. So anyway, it was just kind of interesting that it was like just seeing people that don't like that don't watch wrestling watch just really good in-ring wrestlers without hearing them speak, without knowing really anything about them, just letting the wrestling literally do the talking and gauging like them kind of becoming fans as I was watching it happen. Like it was just kind of worth once again, just like the power of actual good in-ring wrestling. I think it gets overshadowed often, especially in mainstream wrestling, especially when it comes to the WWE. You know, if you were to take this show that we're discussing right now and compare, we haven't even seen Clash in Paris yet. Or sorry, I keep calling Clash in Paris, Clash in Italy. They were in Paris. What year was that? Was it Backlash? Yeah,
they were in Paris. They were in Paris last year for Clash.
It was Clash in Paris. That's why I keep calling it that. I was like, why do I keep calling it that? Anyways, that show hasn't even happened yet. So let's compare this to WrestleMania. You know, it's kind of apples and oranges, but if you're talking about just straight up in-ring wrestling matches, it's completely uncomparable. Like what we saw on Sunday versus what we saw at WrestleMania. Like there was some Roman and Punk was a very good match. It told a great story, but that was pretty much the main highlight of 2 full nights of WrestleMania. And in one night of AEW, and also another thing that was telling was nobody left. Like they stayed the entire show all the way until the Kevin Knight heel turn at the end. Like no, usually if I have people over, I'm going to be completely honest. If I have people over for a WWE show, usually a lot of the time they leave like halfway through. They're just like, appreciate it, man. Like they're not like dicks about it. It's just like not really for them. You know what I mean?
Irish
like
goodbye. Just
well,
when you're not even knowing.
Yeah. I walk away, walk to the kitchen and come back. No one's there. But you know, usually it's like, especially if Cody is not the main event, because they know that that's what I'm mostly about. And some of them went to high school with us, so like for them it's kind of cool to kind of follow Cody a little bit also. But if Cody's not the main event, like they're probably out after his match. This show, they say the entire time watched every single match. And it wasn't like we were just bullshitting, like not paying attention. We were sitting there watching the matches, and they like wanted me to explain kind of what was going on and stuff. And they were listening to the commentary. They thought it was funny that, you know, Don Callis was on commentary for some of these matches, and he was managing the people in the matches. So they're listening to the commentary and how biased he is and stuff, and just like putting 2 and 2 together. So anyway, it's all that to say, you know, there's obviously different wrestling for everybody, and I get all that, but like it just can't be understated how powerful actual great in-ring wrestling can be in really making new fans. And that's my biggest takeaway of this show. I mean, then you also have stuff like the Stadium Stampede match, which is like all over the place, but like on a show like this, it was great because it was something different. On a show of like banger, you know, technical wrestling matches, you had something completely different all over the place. And, you know, they thought that was fun too. And so did I. By the way, as I'm talking a lot for them, I enjoyed all of this as well. I liked every single match on this show. And I think also,
it'd be hilarious if like you loved all this and you're like, this show just kind of sucks. Honestly, like I need my WWE. We need more headlocks and, you know, power slams and slow it down and drop drop down, hip toss, tackle stuff. This is too much. They're doing overkill in all of these matches.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's pretty much it outside of the main event. We didn't really touch on the pre-show, but it's worth mentioning they were entertained by the whatever you call it, the conglomeration Big Boom team, like that whole match, because they recognized the Rizzler and stuff just from social media, and they actually remembered Orange Cassidy. That was one of the few people they remembered because of the like putting his hands in his pockets and stuff. So they actually really enjoyed seeing that. And the main event, I thought this was really good too. They did a great job of getting everyone invested in this and teasing that Max was going to get his head shaved. The actual match itself, I think, totally delivered, and pretty much what I predicted happened as far as Darby finally broke down. He had MJF in the Scorpion Deathlock, and his body just gave out on him, and it opened it up for MJF to do the second rope tombstone, followed up with the headlock takeover, 1, 2, 3. And I think all of us were pretty much expecting MJF to win here. Ever since Darby won the championship, it all just, it kind of played out exactly how people expected it to, but I don't think people expected that hair stipulation up until a few weeks ago. And also, I've said it 1,000 times, doing the predictable thing is not bad. Usually it isn't bad. Like sometimes you want to be tricked or swerved or, not expect something or other, but a lot of the time just doing the obvious thing. And I think that Darby had an awesome title reign for that short run. He defended the title, like 8 times? And
7 or 8 times. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, good for him. That's more than at least some of the AEW world champions defended their titles. I know that they did it it was obviously more spread out, but I don't remember Samoa Joe defending 8 times, for instance, and stuff like that, So Darby did a whole lot in a short amount of time, and they immediately went into his next feud and everything because, Kevin Knight turned on him after the show, and there's a lot there too. You have Kevin Knight teasing, what's going on with him and MJF, because he's beaten MJF recently, and they're kind of teasing he still wants to wrestle him and have 2 belts. Speedball's in the mix. He turned on Speedball last night, so you got a lot of business to handle there. Swerve is kind of teasing he might be interested in Kevin Knight, so there might be something there. And then, of course, you have Kevin Knight and Darby, who both trained under Buddy Wayne, and there's a lot of story you can tell there. So they're set for a long time here. Really talented guys and a lot of young talent. We're talking about a lot of young talent right now that has never been on any other mainstream wrestling show, basically. And, I think this is great for AEW to be coming out of a show like this. You got MJF as the champion again. No one takes anything away from Darby losing the title. He's always going to be in the mix and seen as a main event guy, essentially, in AEW forever going forward, I think. He won't always be in the main event, obviously, but you know what I mean. He's a made man in AEW forever. You accomplish a lot with Kevin Knight. There's a lot you can accomplish as well with Speedball, coming off of that too with Knight, against Knight. So yeah, this pay-per-view is awesome.
Yeah. You mentioned Darby and MJF and the hair that MJF still has, and the Kevin Knight turn. So what did you make of the Kevin Knight turn when it happened, and then a little bit to follow up on kind of what happened last night with his first promo and then taking out Speedball as well?
So one thing I'll say, and I'm a Kevin Knight fan, for people who don't know, I've seen him many times live in Atlanta because he's wrestled in this area. I think he lived here for a while, but I'd see him at Battle Slam, especially. And he's a guy I've been rooting for, and I've followed his journey, with Kushida and everything. And he's a guy who's been ready to break out for a while now. But I do think he needs to work on his promos. But that's the thing that I think just going to come with more time and more confidence. The more he does it, the better he'll get at it. It's not anything I'm worried about. He just kind of stumbles over some of his words occasionally, but it's like, once again, he's out there getting reps and he's put in a great spot. The only reason I'm concerned about it at all is like if he has to go back and forth with like MJF, for instance, MJF's going to torch him. You know what I mean? Like, so he's got to be prepared. Outside of that, dude, I think Kevin Knight turning heel, I expected somebody to turn heel, either him or Speedball, especially in part. Like, it's interesting how they've set this up, because Kevin Knight made it very clear prior to the pay-per-view to Darby, hey, don't lose the title. We're really counting on you here. You don't want to lose this belt. And Speedball has been kind of in the middle of this. Like, you couldn't really tell which way he was going to lean. And when Kevin Knight turned, I like that he did it. And then I like also how they followed up on Wednesday last night with Speedball coming out and just being like the ultimate white meat baby face and being like, listen, you messed up. You can do the right thing. You can apologize and we can go make things right and we can move on, And instead, Kevin Knight attacked him. So it makes it pretty clear, at least for the time being, Speedball's a baby face, Kevin Knight's a heel, and I'd expect them to have a big match for the TNT Championship, which I think is going to be really...
That's next week.
So good. Oh, that's right. I forgot that was already announced. So that's going to be an incredible match. And it's also something where I don't necessarily like this, but in AEW, they do hot potato a lot of the titles. So I wouldn't be surprised if Speedball won the championship. I know it wouldn't be maybe the best thing coming off of this heel turn, but they have so many damn titles that he can just direct his attention to another championship, like the World Championship, if you're Kevin Knight. But anyways, I think that's how I felt about it. I like the heel turn. I expected somebody to turn soon. I think Speedball's a better babyface than heel, personally. I'd be interested in him having a push as a heel at some point. But I think he just is more of a natural babyface, especially with his moveset. So, yeah, that's how I felt about all of it.
I think Kevin Knight will continue to improve on promos. I actually thought his promo last night was good. I thought it started not rough, but it was, hey, we're going to make fun of the Philadelphia sports teams. And it's like, okay, like, look, this is good heel work. Every heel in the world does this kind of stuff. But it's also just like a cliche thing of, I think a lot of heels lean on that when they're not as comfortable doing anything else. Is like, all right, when push comes to shove, I can make fun of the sports teams. That always gets everybody. But then I thought he continued to get better. And when the crowd was actually chanting that, like, he's like, do I look like a bench player? And the crowd is like, yes. And they were chanting that. I was like, oh, he's got him. Because you know how these crowds are. They would chant like, no, you're not. Like, you're Kevin Knight. You're great. We love you, even though you're a heel, but you're a great wrestler. Like, the fact that they were chanting yes at him is like, okay, he's a heel. He's got the crowd. That's what matters the most. Like you said, he'll continue to get better with the promos, but I thought last night was a good start for him.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think part of this also, when it comes to the fan base, maybe this is a stretch. Maybe I'm wrong about this, but I feel like right now, especially, and I'm not going to blame any specific person. It was more of a scenario in the aftermath of it. But I feel like it's been a while, obviously, since like the whole Brawl Out, CM Punk stuff, all that, right? Like, it's been a long time since that. But the reason I'm bringing it up still is because when that happened, the way that I see it, at least, was AEW was doing very well. They were already the alternative. AEW was killing it. And I don't think they necessarily needed CM Punk to begin with. But when they brought him in, he was their biggest star, and their business did boom. And he was, at the time, it was a great thing for AEW to be in business with CM Punk when he was in the company. With that came a lot of fans that were more CM Punk fans, more WWE fans, just more, not necessarily like homegrown day one AEW fans. And I think it took a lot of time to almost kind of weed those people out. And I think also the timing of like what's happening in the WWE right now with like these signal messages getting deleted and all the prices of everything going up and all this stuff going on in the WWE that's just like been a bad look after bad look after bad look. I kind of feel like the whole AEW audience now, at least the ones going live, like they all want AEW to succeed. Like they're all participating in the show. Like these aren't snarky fans that are in this to hijack a show and boo all the good guys and cheer all the bad guys and ruin the shows and chant CM Punk throughout the show and boo Cody Rhodes for no reason and all this stuff. Like, I think we're at just like a really good point right now where I think a lot of people are rooting for AEW. I think the people going to AEW shows, a lot of them are day one AEW fans, but a lot of them also are disenfranchised WWE fans, or they're fans with families that can't afford to go to WWE shows, and they can bring their whole family to AEW, and they're seeing wrestling at a level they've never seen before. And I just feel like that's just kind of, I think they're in kind of the best spot they've been in really since the beginning of the company, where I just feel like the people that are watching AEW, there's always going to be like the online bullshit where like people are going to troll, and there's going to be the tribalism and all that stuff, but it's also super easy to just not pay attention to any of that and just like watch the wrestling that you like to watch. And I think a lot of people right now, pretty much everybody that's watching AEW that says that they're a fan of AEW, that's going to AEW shows, like they're all on the same page and they want AEW to succeed. And it's been a lot of fun for everybody. And I think it just reflects on the shows. Like the shows have been awesome, the crowds have been awesome, the stories have been awesome, the roster's awesome, and WWE is like got the worst look it's had in a long time right now. It just kind of all goes hand in hand. So I think this is like the best time to be an AEW fan right now.
Anything else from Double or Nothing? I know we kind of speed run the card a little bit, but anything else that like really stood out to you?
No, I don't think anything else really stood out. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. Obviously, Jon Moxley and Kyle O'Reilly, I thought that was really good. I'm a big fan of both of those guys. I think Mox is doing the best work of his entire career right now, honestly. I think this whole Death Rider thing has completely 180'd for me from like the time that it started. It's interesting because it's gotten so much better since he lost the AEW World Championship, which seems so backwards. But I love that match between Moxley and O'Reilly, and I thought it was great storytelling that Moxley beat O'Reilly with an ankle lock, made him submit to the move that he kept getting beat by O'Reilly with. So that was like redemption for Moxley, and then that goes hand in hand with Will Ospreay and him being aligned with the Death Riders. We saw them in trios action on Collision last night, and there's a lot going on there too, which I think is very interesting. I talked about it last week on the show quite a bit about, the different directions they could be going, with Ospreay in the Death Riders and all that stuff. But I think it's really, it's interesting because, we have like Kenny Omega mixed in now too, where like, Moxley overheard Omega talking about how Ospreay probably shouldn't trust these guys, but it's also in the back of all of our minds that at some point you would imagine, whether there's a turn or not, I think Will Ospreay is going to have to defeat Jon Moxley before he goes to Wembley. I think that's going to be like his final test before he gets his world title match. Maybe even similar to, how they did Moxley versus Darby, when Darby had the guaranteed title shot and he put it up on the line and Moxley actually won it from him and then he beat Danielson for the title. You can do something identical and I think it would work if you did. Ospreay wins the Owen, gets the title shot, and then Mox says, all right, well, to repay me for helping you all this time, put your title shot on the line, me versus you, this is your final test, and Ospreay beats him and then goes on to beat MJF for the championship at Wembley. So that's kind of how I see it right now. But I like the dynamic of all of this. I think it's really good. I mean, the people that gotten hurt the worst in this entire scenario with the Death Riders recently has been the Ops, because they just kind of look like fools. Like Samoa Joe's just like, all right, guys, I got to go shoot some stuff in Hollywood. So it's back to Hook being in charge, and like that's going to go nowhere. So kind of feel bad for them.
Yeah, I'm definitely worried about the Ops if Joe's gone, and I guess Hook is in charge because that went nowhere. That went nowhere last time. They kind of brought in Anthony Bowens, sort of. I mean, they did, but like it took until Joe was back for Anthony Bowens to actually like be part of the group. I mean, Hook's kind of he's not really a thing. Shibata loses every match he's in. Bowens is not really a thing. Yeah, that group's kind of dead without Samoa Joe.
Yeah. If I was Samoa Joe, I'd probably kind of draft a new squad anyways when I came back. Like, I like Shibata. I think it's kind of, I mean, in a lot of ways, it's a miracle he's even wrestling after, what happened and his injuries. I remember watching him doing those headbutts that put him out for all those years and just thinking it was the grossest thing I maybe have ever seen in wrestling, just knowing what that was doing to him. And for him to even be back is wild, but it is kind of crazy how he's used, like kind of as a background guy and does lose so often. But yeah, if I was him, I would, if I was Shibata, I would just run away from the group. Bowens might want to go find where Max Caster's at or something. I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. The ops, I mean, especially because in storyline, Ospreay just straight up chose the Death Riders over the ops too. It wasn't even like the ops weren't even competitive in like the the
bidding process.
Pursuit of him. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Ospreay was a free agent, and the ops weren't even at the table.
They couldn't even get the meeting with him or anything. It was just, all right, I'm here with the Death Riders. I got nothing to do with you guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, Dollar for Film said he was at Double or Nothing. Hell yeah.
Yeah, what's up, Kogan?
Yeah, it was a great show. We've been talking about it, but yeah. I hope I'm sure you had a good time. Sounds like you had a good time. So, hey, good on you. Glad you had a good time. Glad they delivered a great show. It looked like the stadium looked really cool. Like I thought the setup was good. We got to see plenty of the stadium with the Stadium Stampede as well. So, yeah, it looked like a really fun show live. So, glad you had a good time, man.
Yeah, and it looked like a legitimate sellout. I mean, it was packed in there, and the place was loud. So, I know you might be coming on the back end here, but I was, we've been saying this whole time. I mean, I don't know if you officially said it or not. I think it was the best wrestling show that any company has put on this whole year. You agree?
Yeah, in ring wise for sure. I think it's, as far as like even AEW wise, the only one that is close or like that off the top of my head that like I'm like, oh yeah, this is the show is All Out 2021. And this show was better in ring wise than that show. I was also there for All Out 2021, so it's a little bit of a bigger moment for me than this show. And, that's the show. I had a Punk's return match. I had Brian and Cole to end the show and everything, and like that, like it had the moments on that show. But this like bell to bell stuff, I'm sure there's other AEW pay-per-views that are like close to it, but I don't remember any other AEW pay-per-view where legitimately every single match was this good, and like the worst match, which was probably Athena and Mina, like was still a really good match that just kind of lacked time.
Yeah, well, and to your point with All Out 2021, where CM Punk returned to wrestling, wrestled Darby, and then, as you said, Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson both debut at the end. Obviously, those were bigger moments in like the grand scheme of wrestling, especially at the time, because that's when wrestlers like Danielson and Cole were deciding not to renew their contracts with the WWE and literally jumping ship to AEW. And while it's not as big moments wise, I think that it's cool that he still got something really effective at the end of this pay-per-view with Kevin Knight, because it was a big heel turn that sets up a lot of different stuff. And he is a homegrown, obviously he wrestled in New Japan and other companies, but he never wrestled in WWE, we'll say. He's a homegrown non-WWE talent in AEW that got a big moment at the end of the show. And I think it was very effective. And so it also goes to kind of show you can pull off these big moments on these pay-per-views without needing it to necessarily be some like huge shock debut moment or something. Like this was like an in-house thing that made perfect sense storyline wise and sets up a whole bunch going forward. So I think it was effective in just like a totally different way.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, you debut Adam Cole, Bryan Danielson back to back. That's
not getting any bigger than that. I mean, yeah, for sure.
That's the only show that really comes to mind of like, what's the show that stands out from start to finish. But, all right, that was Double or Nothing, everybody, and there was a lot to like about this show, and it was. I'm glad AEW had a strong show. Like any wrestling company that has a strong show is good for wrestling, and I thought the follow-up last night was good as well. So looking forward to seeing what they continue to build as they head to kind of all-in season. Dollar from selling Full Gear 2021, Revolution 2024, and Double or Nothing 2026. What was Full Gear 2021?
Is that the Young Bucks versus Hangman and Omega?
No, I don't think
that was Revolution. That was Revolution.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. What was Full Gear 2021? That was Hangman and Omega. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that was a
Oh,
really
when Hangman won the title from Omega.
Yeah. Okay. That had a great moment at the end. That had Punk and Kingston on it too. I love that match. That had some weak stuff on it though. That had some not so great stuff on that show. I were you there at that one, Kogan? Revolution 2024. That was Sting's retirement. Yeah, I was there for that one. That show was excellent, and I mean, obviously, the main event is the main event. So that's probably the greatest match I've seen live. That will probably never be topped because of everything that went into it. You know, like it's tough. Like you can't replicate that moment, and so that's probably. Even though it's like not the greatest in-ring match in the world, I mean it's really good, but I can see if like it's not a 5-star match or whatever, but you can't take away like everything that's packed into that moment and that match. So I'm with you on Revolution 2024, but again, that much like All Out 2021, that has the benefit for me if I was there live. So. Obviously, it's a little bit higher on the list for me than other shows that I wasn't there live for.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Sting Darby Young Bucks match at Revolution was the best retirement match ever. Yeah. Even that moment.
Okada Tanahashi is very, very close.
Oh yeah, I mean, but for what Sting meant to us growing up as wrestling fans. And also, I mean, a shout out to you for grabbing me that signed Sting AEW Jazzwares figure. I have it prominently displayed in my collection. I know you had to deal with carrying that around. I can't believe they didn't have bags. Like that's on them for not having bags. Yeah. But I mean, I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate that. And that's kind of my thing that I've got from that match. I wasn't there live, obviously, but watching it from home, I love that. And I mean, I've shown so many people that bump of Darby taking off the ladder through the glass, like just to show people who have no idea people are doing this kind of stuff in pro wrestling. So yeah, that match was incredible.
All right, let's go to. I was saying it wasn't at Full Gear 21, but I thought overall the show rocked. Danielson, Miro, MJF, Darby, Punk, Kingston, Hangman, Omega, great stuff. Yeah, it did have. I think MJF and Darby might be the greatest opener. I mean, until like this I Quit match was great, and Bucks against Okada and Takeshita from just a couple months ago was also a fantastic opener. So they've had some really good openers lately. Yeah, the strong stuff on Full Gear 2021 was super strong. There was also like there was a Britt Baker and Ty Conti match. There was the Inner Circle against American Top Team was on that show. They had their moments in that kind of stuff. Cody and Pac against Andrade and Malachi Black. I have no recollection of this. Like Cody teamed with Pac.
I forgot about that.
I have
But just for the
recollection of this.
record, Darby MJF is my favorite opening match in AEW history.
That's fair.
On pay-per-view. That Full Gear. Yeah, I love that one.
That's
set up That set up so much. That's still, I mean, that's the reason MJF won with a headlock takeover, a few nights ago. I mean, so
yeah, that's fair. The strong stuff on Full Gear was definitely really, really strong. But I think there was too many weak points on that show compared to Double or Nothing. Like there was no real weak points on this show. But hey, look, that's a strong card. I'm not mad at you if you're putting that in your top 3. All right, let's get to WWE.
I need to finish the story. In the WWE, the story never finishes.
Cody Rhodes' story is finishing on Sunday, Jensen, when he loses to the Ring General Gunther at Clash.
So that's what people keep saying about my boy Cody. They're always like, "Oh, he's going to lose the championship," and I'm like, "No, he's not." So, I mean, I'm pretty down on the WWE product in general. Cody's my guy. I'm looking forward to this match. I think Cody's doing his best to kind of sell this. There's like I've been watching his media rounds and him doing interviews and stuff, and I get storyline wise when most people I think are thinking is Gunther's going to win the championship and it's going to be Gunther and Brock at SummerSlam in Minnesota with Brock's career on the line, probably. Which they've also jumped the shark on that whole thing too. Brock's retirement has already gotten it's already been kind of overkilled. I mean, obviously I'm taking Cody to win. Like I'm literally never going to pick against Cody. And he does have more feuds that it would be interesting. Obviously Sami Zayn just let Gunther choke Cody out the other day.
Giant loser Sami Zayn.
Giant loser Sami Zayn, completely agree. And most of the people, I think I've heard Cody reference this recently. He's like most of the people that were in the ring with him at WrestleMania 40 when he was being paraded around the ring like Rudy on people's shoulder, the title. Most of them have turned on him now, Sami being one of them. So it's interesting. And I think long term it's interesting too, because I think it's still in the back of everyone's mind that at some point Cody could, quote unquote, go to the dark side and actually give The Rock his soul or whatever and all that stuff. So as of right now, I mean, obviously I'm taking Cody to retain, but I understand why people think Gunther's going to win, especially with the run Gunther's been on. Retired Cena, retired Goldberg, retired AJ. This is not a retirement match, obviously. Beat Seth at WrestleMania, right? If I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. But obviously not every match Gunther's going to have is for the championship. Cody, not every match Gunther's going to have is going to be career on the line is what I meant to say. Cody said on the Rich Eisen show, it was yesterday or today, he was talking about, the difference between him and these legends or nostalgia matches, as he called it, is that Cody is, the champion. Like Cody had recently beat John Cena. So it's not that impressive that Gunther beat John Cena after Cody did. Some of the stuff Cody's saying is also almost teetering the line of heelish, which I think is very interesting. Like I think he's kind of making it. He's saying things in a way in which it's like Gunther's in the position he's in, and he's as big of a name as he is because he's going to be in the ring with me, and they're kind of completely ignoring how Gunther is a multiple-time world champion just with the other belt, which I would say, means less, especially historically, than the one Cody holds. But that's, they're both technically the world champions. So, that's kind of how I feel about it all going into it. It goes hand in hand also with Brock versus Obafemi and what I think is going to happen there. So we'll get into that in a second. I'm assuming your prediction is Gunther becoming the new WWE champion.
Yeah, I think I can't see them. They do a lot of dumb stuff. I don't think it makes a ton of sense to put Gunther on this entire run and then, oh, we're just going to have Cody Rhodes beat you. Like, this is very much LOL Cody wins. If you put Gunther on this run of retiring Goldberg, retiring Cena, retiring AJ, beating Seth at WrestleMania. Cody already beat him in the
King of the Ring.
Yeah.
And in the finals of the Royal Rumble a couple years ago, like they were the last two,
Yeah.
had like a full-on match, and Cody eliminated him. Yep.
And so if he just loses here to Cody, it feels very much of LOL Cody wins. And I think they need to avoid that here. I also think, so this match is on ESPN. This is on the first hour, so you can actually tune in early and then tune out early, Jensen. The Tribal Chief is headlining as he should.
They're putting Cody versus Gunther on for free on ESPN?
Yeah.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah. And I think they're going to do a title change because of that, too. Because the other ESPN match is Jade and Rhea, and I don't think they're switching back to Jade that quickly when they just had Rhea win it. But I think they want to do something big on ESPN. They did Brock and Oba on ESPN for WrestleMania. Brock retired. That was obviously a big moment. Backlash didn't really have, like, it had a really good match with Seth and Braun, but it didn't have, like, this big shocking. This is standard ESPN 2. It's not ESPN 2. I'm pretty sure Backlash was ESPN 2. This is legit ESPN. I think they want to do, like, a shocking moment of, like, tune in and see this show, because you never know, anything can happen in the World Wrestling Federation, including a title change on ESPN in the first hour. So that's another reason why I think Gunther's going to win.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I just hope maybe more of like a Super Cody type scenario where he just kind of is like John Cena was, back in the early 2000s, and just doesn't really hardly ever lose to anybody. Although it does give Cody, a challenge and a new, something new to, a new goal to go after. If Gunther defeats him, Cody's going to have to, eventually defeat him at some point as well, even though he's already beaten him a few times. But, yeah, I'm definitely take Cody to retain. I hope it's it's going to be a good match.
Yeah.
Obviously. So, but yeah, hope it doesn't lose.
Jade and Rhea. I think we're both probably taking Rhea in this one.
Yeah, y'all know I love Jade, but I don't see any reason for them to take the belt off Rhea. She just won it. It just wouldn't make any sense to go back to Jade right now. They're gonna have to kind of figure out what to do with Jade after this, though.
Yeah, I don't know where I mean, they don't have a ton of women on SmackDown. Like, everybody's in the tag division. So hopefully they kind of get that shuffled around and get more singles people for her to feud with, and other people in the division to feud with. Because, again, there's way too many people in the tag division, and it's left the singles division, especially on SmackDown, kind of dry. I mean, even on Raw, Liv Morgan's had no challengers since winning the title at WrestleMania. Nobody. Not a thing. Also on this card, Becky Lynch against Sol Ruka for the Women's Intercontinental Championship. Who you got in this one?
You're going to have to clue me in on this. All I've seen, and maybe I've just seen the wrong clips, has Sol been like winning recently? Or because most of what I've seen has been her like losing, but I haven't seen like everything.
Yeah, that's kind of been the knock, is that she is just a loser. I mean, she beat Becky by DQ at Saturday Night's Main Event in like a 2.5 minute match, because Becky just kind of like got herself disqualified. But she lost to Io. She lost to Liv her first night on Raw. She lost the last woman standing match to Zarya. So yeah, she kind of just like has lost a lot, but she's getting the title shot and getting this match.
I'll take Sol.
Fair.
With the Soul Snatcher.
Yeah.
People pop. I don't have much more to say.
Oba and Brock.
So this one is more interesting. I'm going to stick with my prediction of Brock winning. I don't think that's a good thing for Oba. I think it will kind of nullify what he did to Brock in their first match to some degree, as far as like perception. Especially if Brock just beats him and then they're just one and one is their record, and then Brock is probably. I mean, we're all. Are you expecting them to do Gunther versus Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam? Like, are you pretty sure they're going to do that?
It feels that way. It definitely feels that way.
So if they're going to do that, I doubt it's going to be Gunther coming off a loss and Brock coming off of a loss. I'd imagine they're both probably going to win. And then you do championship versus career. But, once again, it's just going to be weird because Brock in that situation, especially in Minnesota, is going to be a de facto baby face. So this storyline, while Brock is not a baby face, this story is a baby face redemption story where Oba Femi destroyed him at WrestleMania. He retired. The fans, showed him respect and, cheered for him because they thought that was the last they were going to see him. Now Brock has come back, even though he has, attacked Oba Femi and still acts like a heel. He still has to overcome Oba Femi. Like, it's still like a redemption story. So when he defeats Oba, the fans are going to boo on this show because they like Oba, and are going to be like, "What the hell? We just saw Oba. Like, why do this to Oba after he already won?" But those same fans in this same audience is going to be behind Brock as a babyface going after Gunther, because that story, I think he's going to basically be portrayed as a babyface, especially because the match is in Minnesota. If that's what they're going to do. And Brock, that's basically his home. He lives in Canada, but he spent a lot of time living in Minnesota, and he went to the University of Minnesota, yada, yada, yada. Played for the Vikings. Skull. Kind of played for the Vikings.
Practice squad, yeah.
No, I watched him. So did I ever tell you I saw Brock Lesnar play in person in Atlanta?
No.
So he did get a few reps on the field, and I got to go to, obviously it was because the Vikings were in town, so my family got preseason tickets for cheap or whatever at the Georgia Dome. And we went to that, and Brock got in, and I remember he only played maybe like 2 plays, and I can't remember who it was who did this to him, but I just remember Brock getting pancaked. Like, somebody hit him in the helmet and like literally like walked on top of his body, like when they ran with the ball, like literally like a cartoon, like got knocked over and then literally ran on top of, and they like ran past him, and I was like, oh damn, like Brock just got destroyed on that one. But shout out for him, going out there and trying. The lore is that he was asked to join NFL Europe, didn't want to do it, then joined the UFC instead. But like, he was real close to, being on the team but not being on the team, like almost being like a reserve for the team. Anyways, that's all to say, he's going to get cheered in Minnesota. So that's how I see all this playing out. And then I think if it happens, Gunther will defeat Brock. But I also don't think he's going to be retired forever either, because I think money talks, and they're going to continue to throw money at him when they feel like they need to pop a rating or get PLE buys on something if he's still healthy. So I don't really buy that it's like a real retirement, especially with what they're doing right now, like how they're already backtracking on the retirement we already saw.
Right. Yeah, I think Brock wins. I don't know why look, if they double put over Oba, great. I'm all for that. But it feels strange to, when you had this moment of Oba retires Brock Lesnar, if that was going to be the moment, you let that moment live instead of bringing him back. Because if you're going to bring him back, it feels like he's going to win. If Oba wins, I'm all for it. Somebody saying Brock loses by DQ, puts his career on the line at SummerSlam, and then Oba retires him there. That's fine. I don't want Oba losing. Like, you put him over so strong at WrestleMania, it feels counterproductive to now have him lose to Brock. I know people will be like, well, he beat him strong at WrestleMania, And look how much it took Brock, because I imagine he's going to take him like 20 F5s and everything. So look how much it took Brock to put Oba down and all of this stuff. But it still doesn't do Oba any favors by doing that when you had such a strong moment at WrestleMania. Oh, I think there's a way to do this where Gunther doesn't have to be the champion. I know that'll excite you. Gunther doesn't have to be the champion going into SummerSlam, and Brock can lose this match. And they do it. I realize that kind of paints it as two losers wrestling, but they got a few months until SummerSlam anyway. It's not until August. It's not like it's next week or next month even. So you look at it as Brock being on sort of like his last stand, and Gunther calling him out on that this is his last stand of things. And Gunther basically makes fun of him for like, you're a shell of your former self. Like, look at you. Like, you lost to Oba twice. You haven't done anything since then. And you got to give Gunther some wins between now and SummerSlam, assuming he's going to lose to Cody this Sunday. And you can sell it from there that Brock puts his career on the line, because Gunther's like, let me just put you down. Let me just end you, be done with you, and that's that. And Brock, because, look, if babyface is Brock, I understand not everybody's going to like that. He's going to be the babyface in Minnesota. So we're just going to have to get over that. But I think there's a way to do it with Brock losing this match. I just don't think they're that smart.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I couldn't agree more. Maybe Brock will come out in like a Vikings jersey or something for the match and get a huge pop.
Yeah.
I think it's cool that Tiffany Stratton has leaned so into that whole thing, because she's from there as well. And I know she's been doing a lot of the media for US Bank Stadium and stuff like that. So I said it before and I'll say it again. Just feed me merch. Give me crossover merch. Vikings X Cody Rhodes merch, please. Do it.
They'll get more. They'll have plenty. I know we talked about it last week, but they'll have plenty at like the Super Slam or the SummerSlam Superstore. Like they'll have a lot on that. And then the main event: Roman Reigns, Jacob Fatu, Tribal Combat.
Yeah, so I feel like Roman's going to retain, especially if Cody winds up losing. But we're not going to think like that. Cody's going to retain. I think it'd be cool for Jacob Fatu to win the championship. But Roman did win it, pretty recently at WrestleMania. Tribal Combat also leaves room though for like a lot of shenanigans, obviously. So, who's that gonna ultimately work in favor for? Also, I need to ask this question because I legitimately don't know. Are Solo and that group of whoever's still left there, are they involved with this at all? Like, it's just the family that's just like off to the side, even though they're the same family. They have nothing to do with this.
They were involved going into like Backlash and a little bit coming out with Jacob and Solo, but in more recent weeks, not at all. Solo's been kind of occupied with like Royce Keys and Damian Priest and R-Truth and everything, so he's not really involved in it now. It's the Usos mainly.
Okay, yeah, I've seen the Usos and their involvement,
yeah.
And I know Jay had the steel chair the other day. I get some of this stuff mixed up when I saw like week to week when it's already Thursday and it's like which Monday did I watch what. But I know that they declared Tribal Combat like 2 weeks ago, and then I think it was this past week when they did the contract signing, right? And they were doing like the face-to-face. Roman said there was a blood oath and they wouldn't fight one another. They went forehead to forehead. It's just strange to me if Solo, who's still there? Solo, Tala, and Tama?
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
That's so weak. They shouldn't be involved with this. It's just weird to me that they're in the same family and they're that. I don't want to say irrelevant, but I don't know how else to put it. Because obviously, Solo is the Usos' brother. I mean, like, how would he not be interested in what's going on here? So it's kind of in the back of my mind that I feel like a whole bunch of family members could get involved. Shout out to Jacob, by the way, for implementing the tongue and death grip so often recently. I was a big Ming/Haku fan back in the day. But they got to protect that. They're making this seem like this is like killing people. If he locks this on, he needs to win matches with it. So I don't know how to say this name here, but thank you for being a part of the show. Eguzendes? I don't know if I'm saying that right. It says Zilla Fatu debuts. I don't know. I mean, if he was going to randomly debut, if he was signed to the WWE, this would be a good spot for that because it's no DQ, and I do expect a lot of interference. And I do think Zilla's going to eventually be a part of the WWE. I think that's pretty. I think most people expect that. Has there been any like traction on that I've missed, or people talking about him debuting anytime soon, or just like people just put that together because he's in the family and he's
they've been talking about Zilla and a potential debut for I feel like 2 years now. Yeah. So, and it hasn't. That's one of those things where I'll believe it when I see it, type of thing. And look, maybe it does happen this weekend. You know, he always keeps his name out there with everything. I don't see it, but I'm also not. I'm probably never going to be like, yeah, Zilla, this is the spot for him. Like, I do think if you're gonna do it, this probably is a good spot for him, but I don't think it's going to happen. Scott saying Usos have to turn to make this interesting. Like, yeah, I kind of agree with that because them next to Roman just isn't super interesting at this point. Them next to Jacob is something new and a little bit fresher. So I'm not fully mad at that idea.
I mean, preferably from my perspective, I prefer, obviously Cody to retain over Gunther, but I think that if Cody retains over Gunther, it's more likely Jacob could win the championship. Yeah. And I'm not against that at all. I think that story could be really interesting because Roman was talking about how after Jacob loses this match to him, he's going to have to sit at the table and he's going to have to learn under Roman. He's going to basically be on the trajectory of, when Roman was in charge of the bloodline, Jacob's kind of going to have to be in a lesser role. And I like the idea of Jacob being the head of the table and the Usos buying into it, maybe even Solo and those guys buying into it. The other thing about Zilla, by the way, that people don't take into account enough is he's still only a few years into his wrestling career. So I also don't know like how itchy WWE is like to sign him immediately. Like it's relevant because this bloodline story and the offshoots of that are like still happening. But he's a guy who, in my personal opinion, he benefit massively from like going to NXT and like actually, he doesn't have that much experience. He's good for the experience he has, but people just kind of forget that too. He's still only a few years in. He's probably sold less than 100 matches in his entire career. So anyways, I'm going to actually take Jacob Fatu. I'm going to say that I was thinking Roman going into this, but the more that I think about it, the story is just so much better with Jacob winning. And if he's going to win the championship, you have so many outs in a match like this with no DQ and all these interferences and stuff where Jacob can win without, just straight up beating Roman one-on-one. Like I'm going to go with Jacob Fatu.
All right. I mean, I think it can be interesting if Jacob wins. I don't foresee it happening, but I think there's a story there. And look, if Roman's going to put anybody over, like he's going to put over his family. So Jacob winning wouldn't be like the most shocking thing in the world there either. So that's WWE Clash in Italy. This is honestly a strong show. You got 2 world title matches on it. You got Brock and Oba. You got the women's world title match, which is a WrestleMania rematch. And then you got Becky against a new star. Like this on paper, I don't know, like wrestling wise, how like it looks good wrestling wise on paper. But as far as like actual like star power and build and everything, like I think this is actually one of their better shows in a while, truthfully. Like We'll see how it turns out. I think the in-ring will be good enough with everything. Gunther Cody should be good. Becky and Soul could be hit or miss. Rhea and Jade was good at WrestleMania. I think they'll have a good match here. Oba and Brock will be good for what it is, and then Roman and Jacob, I think will be good because they'll have enough dressing around it to make it good. So I'm actually looking forward to this show. Wish it was on Saturday afternoon, not Sunday afternoon, but whatever.
Yeah,
and
the
crowd will
in the afternoon.
Yeah, the crowd will be hot for it too. International crowds are always really good, so the crowd will be into everything, which will help the show, assuming they don't get killed by all the ads and just they get burnt out of like, hey, where's the wrestling? Why are we watching another video package live in the arena?
Or assuming that no one keeps getting injured. Like I saw Logan got hurt. Like that whole Vision group is like, I can't believe they really just need to. Now it's just Braun Breaker and Austin Theory are just the tag champions now.
Yeah.
Also, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I just remembered this, and it reminded me because I am wearing an NWO shirt, and I saw a message earlier asking if I was wearing a Wolfpack shirt. Did you see that report? Okay, so the other week when we were talking about the John Cena Classic, about how it was the worst idea I've ever heard in my life, that's been topped actually now. There are reports from a former WWE writer that there was an actual pitch around 2020 to reform the NWO with Sheamus, Lars Sullivan, Cesaro, and Shinsuke Nakamura. That's the worst idea I've ever heard in my life. When I read that, I had to like triple check the sources and stuff, and I was like, there's got to be some credibility to this. Why would a WWE writer say this? This is So I just wanted to throw that out there. I went really hard on the John Cena Classic, and I still think it's a terrible idea. I don't fuck with it at all still, but the idea of them trying to make it just a random NWO out of the members I just mentioned.
Yeah, it's not.
That's the worst idea I've ever heard. Yeah. It really is.
Yeah, those we talked a little bit about it today. I think like only Shinsuke fits like an NWO like coolness.
With like the New Japan World Order, if it's like him and like people from New Japan like doing an invasion, that kind of makes sense.
Well, like he's got like they had like a Muda and Shono in the NWO and stuff, so there is some history to play out there. But like I'm talking like swag and confidence and coolness factor. Like Shinsuke has that. Lars Sullivan doesn't. Sheamus really doesn't. Cesaro, like they tried to make him James Bond, and that kind of didn't work too well. Like he doesn't really have that either. Like there's not a coolness to these guys. This is League of Nations,
yes,
not NWO.
It's literally League of Nations with like a couple different members, like some of the same, a couple different. Terrible idea. Apparently they were going to try to shoehorn like Kevin Nash or someone was going to like just come out and like, introduce them. Sorry, go ahead.
It wasn't Kevin Nash. It was a legend. I don't know which legend, but Kevin Nash said it wasn't him, Hall, or Waltman. I doubt it was Hogan. So now you're kind of pushing the definition of NWO legend down to the B team because
Booker T.
Those are the four guys you think of.
Yeah. NWO legend Booker T coming out and who had like a 1 week run in the WWF NWO. Yeah, what a bad idea. Well, I'm glad that Nash came out and he's always out there speaking his mind. That's for sure. But I'm glad that he confirmed that he had nothing to do with that. And yeah, I mean, if you're talking like original NWO, they would have had to really dig deep. Because the other thing with the NWO, the whole concept of the NWO was obviously, back in the day, the whole idea of people not really knowing if Hall and Nash still worked for the WWF and Vince McMahon, and it was like a legitimate takeover of WCW. What they're describing here is like just taking a random group like the League of Nations and just giving them NWO shirts. It doesn't make any sense at all. That's where like the Nakamura thing would have made a little more sense. I agree with the swag and the cool factor. I love Shinsuke Nakamura. He's one of my favorite wrestlers, probably my favorite wrestler, honestly, in the history of New Japan. From like the pocket of time I was subscribed to New Japan World, he was at his peak. And so I'm a big Nakamura guy. But this would have made a lot more sense if it was like Shinsuke and Finn and like Anderson and Gallows or something like that, where it's like it's like a takeover from another company, not just 4 random guys who are already on the roster that have nothing to do with one another. And one day the Big Show comes out and he's like, "You guys are the NWO now." I mean, like, that'd have been terrible. Was NWO going into the Hall of Fame that year or something? Was that the year that they went in? That's the only thing I can think of that makes any sense. They try to tie that in with that or something.
I don't think so, because this was during the COVID year. This was during the pandemic. So
I can't remember when the NWO went in as a group.
Not during the pandemic.
Okay. Fair enough.
I
know it was recent, but it
wasn't during the pandemic year, because that was supposed to be the Batista year was the pandemic, and Batista didn't want to do it because it was during the pandemic, and so they just haven't even circled back around to Batista. The NWO was 2021, so I guess it would have been the following year that the NWO went in, but they wouldn't have been announced by this point, because it was specified that this happened during the PC Thunderdome era, which means it would have been March of 2020 to August of 2020, because they moved to the Thunderdome in August of 2020. So it would have been the following year that they went in.
I wonder if, because I haven't given any thought to this until this conversation. I just randomly remembered seeing something about this stupid group when I was like scrolling the other day. Would this have like ran parallel to Retribution, or like did they do Retribution instead of this? Do you think? Like, because it sounds very similar.
Yeah,
it's like PC era takeover group.
Yeah, it would have ran parallel to Retribution, because Retribution was PC era stuff. That wasn't Thunderdome stuff. That was PC. So yeah, it would have either ran parallel to Retribution, or this got scrapped and Retribution is what they went with.
Right. That's what I'm thinking, is like they had an idea, they had like a need for like a takeover story, and they wound up going with Retribution instead because it looked more like Antifa or whatever, like the stuff that was going on in the news at the time. I don't know. All I know is I grew up in the 90s. The NWO was like the most important group in the history of wrestling, as far as I'm concerned, as a fan. For different reasons, I really appreciate the Shield also. I don't think they get quite as much love as they probably should for like what they did when they did it, especially those guys, and what they've gone on to do individually since. But the NWO, for all intents and purposes, in my opinion, is the greatest group of all time, before it got conflated and they had a B team and all this other stuff. Although I did love the Wolfpack, don't turn your back on the Wolfpack. Shout out Big Sexy. But yeah, man, I'm glad that they didn't try to revitalize the NWO. That would have just been by those standards, you could literally take. Well, they kind of made DIY DX for a minute, just like randomly. Yeah. But my point was going to be, by that standard, you just take, we'll just say take 3 random guys from NXT, give them black vests, and have Seth Rollins say, "You're the new Shield." I mean, that wouldn't work either. Yeah. New Midnight Express didn't work. New Rockers didn't work. It never works out when you try to do something like that.
let's go to the Indies spotlight.
I'm gonna give a big motherfucking shout out.
1FW, One Fall Wrestling is coming to MyAEW, and Tony Khan said that more indie promotions are coming to MyAEW, but we don't have specifications on those promotions yet. But for fans of 1FW, they got Jameson, they got QT Marshall, they got Darby Allin just showed up to one of their last shows. You mentioned their summer show is coming up soon. So Summer Stage. I want to keep calling it Summer Sizzler, and I know that's not right. Summer Stage though. Yeah, that's coming up soon. So yeah, these shows are gonna be. I don't think they're gonna be like live or anything. There wasn't like full on details with it, but I do think it'll be kind of like edited versions or taped versions with this. But that's a cool thing for our friends at 1FW. Actually, I reached out to Jameson after the news was announced and just got a little quote from him to put in the article, and I know he's really excited about it. So I look forward to being able to check out these shows on MyAEW.
Yeah, absolutely. My headphones, by the way, are doing the thing where I might need to switch them here in a second. The battery lasts until I use them throughout my work day also, and so it's just funny how they always die around the same time. But yeah, great for Jameson, a friend of the show for sure. And I've talked about it before, doing commentary for Championship District Wrestling, which kind of, in some ways, kind of is 1FW. I mean, different companies technically, but like a lot of the same people in both companies behind the scenes and in the ring and stuff like that, and commentary, so on and so forth. So it's been really cool seeing like the evolution of that. It's kind of like a mix between CDW Championship District Wrestling and why am I blanking? Teal, Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling. That Teal revived. It kind of morphed into this. So this is awesome. I'm very happy to hear about this being on the MyAEW app, and I think this is going to be potentially could be a big thing in like the indie streaming world because, well, for one, I don't think that they'll air live, or at least based on what they had told us in interviews. I like that they prefer to tape, right? Like I think QT was saying they like taping. They don't want people put on the spot and like making mistakes and stuff like that. So, which I appreciate. I think that's actually that's him really looking out for the talent and letting them get comfortable reps in there in front of the audience, in front of the camera and everything. So I don't expect them to go live, not that necessarily matters. I think that for like the other companies, I don't know who else is planning to make the jump over there, but I would definitely have my eyes on companies that have some sort of working relationship with Tony Khan or with AEW, or have talents that are in AEW that come work those shows on a regular basis and stuff. Just not that I know anything or anything like that. I just, there's certain companies that I kind of have my eye on where I'm like, I could definitely see this company or that company going over. Now, I also don't know what the agreements are with a lot of these companies and IWTV and Triller TV Plus. But I also know there's a lot going on with Triller TV Plus right now. Like, I don't know what the future of that all is going to look like. Fight TV, Triller TV, year over year, it's been great as a fan because I just pay my $10 a month or I was grandfathered in like $7 a month or whatever. And, I get to watch a lot of wrestling on Triller, but I know behind the scenes, it's been a mess for years in different ways. And they've had management changes and mergers and all this stuff year over year over year. So it's one of those things where like, I don't know what the future of that all is going to look like. Maybe it's no problem at all, but there was some stuff that recently came out that just kind of led me to believe some companies may be looking elsewhere from Triller. And that kind of lines up at the same time that MyAEW is interested in bringing people over. Or if people, want to get off of IWTV for whatever reason or whatever it is, it's more options. MyAEW is free, isn't it? I think the app is free.
Yeah, it's a free app, and there's like a free channel on it, but I don't know what actually is. I think it's just like a 24/7 effectively channel. That's the free portion of it.
Okay, because I tried to sign up for it on my on my Roku the other day, and I got to the screen where I was like, I need to make a login to be able to use the app, and I just wound up not doing it at the time because I was working. But I will do that soon because I do want to check the app out, and I do think once again it's good as far as options go. As a fan, it's easier for everything to be on one platform. It's nice. I kind of miss the days when like everything was on IWTV. At one point, like all the companies I watched were all under that one subscription. And it was very easy as a fan. But I think as a promoter, it's really good to have the options. And as a fan, I'm going to follow the products I like regardless. So whether MyAEW is free or if they wind up charging at some point similar to what IWTV or Triller charges, but also can provide, a catalog of a lot of good indie companies and indie talent and stuff, I'm all for it. And if it gives a lot of these wrestlers and promotions more eyes, especially maybe the smaller ones who might not be as prominently featured on IWTV or Triller, for instance, maybe they pop up on MyAEW, and all of a sudden they have this whole fan base of people that never even knew that the company existed. So, and Tony is the right kind of person to be behind something like this. He's a lifelong wrestling message board wrestling nerd. Like he's tapped in. We know what goes on with those Action Dean shows and stuff like that. He's a part of those. So I mean, he's got his eyes out. I'm way more excited about this going forward than I am like Ring of Honor, for instance. So. Yeah, how do you feel about it? I got to switch my headphones over while you talk about this.
Okay. I think it's good for 1FW. I'm looking forward to checking out some of their shows on it. I don't know what it means for like other independent promotions because I think there could be a lot of just logistics when it comes to that. If a company like Defy comes on there, okay, well, I know Defy is now kind of owned by Nikki Cross and Damo, so I don't even know how that works. But if another company comes on there, how much are they getting paid off of it, if anything? Like, I don't know if it's how beneficial it is for other promotions like that. I think for a place like 1FW, where it is very much a developmental place where other stars might show up, but they are looking to do developmental stuff. QT obviously works there. That's helpful. I think it's good for them. I don't know what it's going to lead to moving forward. I think there's a lot of logistical stuff that would have to be worked out that other promotions would have to potentially acquiesce to. I don't know if they want to. I don't know if Tony wants to do that. I don't think Tony wants it to become a WWE Network type thing either, where hey, we're going to buy up a bunch of indie promotions and put them on our show and everything. And because that really backfired on the indies and WWE at that time. There was a lot of backlash over that. And I don't think Tony wants that. I think it makes sense for 1FW because it's effectively a developmental training school. QT has the ties. You do it and you can move forward and everybody's happy with the deal. I don't know if it's going to make a lot of sense for like actual standalone indie promotions that tour the country and everything. And that's the other thing about 1FW is they stay in the same spot. Like, how's this going to work if you're going to this place and that place and this place, and then with the feed, I don't know. I think there would be a lot to work out with that. That's why I'm not getting like super high on it. If more gets announced, awesome. More gets announced. Right now, I'm happy for 1FW and those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely happy for them as well. I agree with what you're saying though, as far as it makes the most sense for 1FW because of their ties to AEW. But I also think that I think there are plenty of indie companies, like New South comes to mind, that pre-record pretty much all of their shows already. Like, so you don't have to really worry about, the live streaming aspect of it as much as just like having the rights to the upload or like the catalog and stuff like that. So it's an interesting time. It's not one of those things where I think like MyAEW is coming around and they're going to take down all these other streaming services and start trying to get people to jump ship constantly. But I also think that if Tony Khan wasn't interested in adding more content from the indies, he wouldn't have given an answer where, you know what I mean? He was asked about it recently, and he straight up was like, we plan to add more, you know, like, I mean, so it's just going to be interesting to see, you know, what he brings and what he doesn't. And also, you know, depending on the companies and stuff, it could be not, you know, so they probably wouldn't have a problem with this anyways already, but, you know, when it comes to AEW, so much of their talent is homegrown as far as, you know, haven't been on WWE TV before. And if AEW can have more places where the fan base can see where some of these people came from, like for instance, if you're just now discovering Alec Price and Jordan Oliver, it would be great to be able to go on MyAEW app and watch like some of their best indie matches right there. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's where I think a lot of the value could really come for them, is being able to see where these wrestlers came from before they got to AEW.
Yeah. I don't know, again, if he's trying to buy libraries. I have no idea on that stuff. We shall see moving forward on that. All right, our final topic of the night.
Our product is what it is. We're going straight up the middle.
So, Joel Pearl, who people, I assume if you're watching this show, know who he is. He called the Hardys and the Dudleys stupid while praising it for being a draw. And then Matt Hardy called him out on it. And then Matt Hardy continued to call him out on it. And Joel has ignored him. And that's where we're at on this whole thing.
Okay.
I think this whole thing is stupid, Jensen.
I didn't really know much about what was going on. I just saw some back and forth on Twitter the other day. So, like, I think it was last night, maybe this morning, I went on Matt's feed and I saw he was like still talking about it. And maybe it was like yesterday. I don't want to misquote here. I like Matt Hardy. You know what I mean? Yeah, I like John Alba. You know what I mean? I like, you know what I mean? And so it's one of those. Obviously, I like Joel. I know how you feel about it, but obviously Joel's a good friend of ours and a co-host of both of ours. Me with the NX or the TNA post shows. It's gonna be interesting the next time we do one of those. If Matt tunes in, I'd be interested to get his feedback. And here's the thing about Matt that he doesn't get enough credit for. He really was one of the first like internet wrestling guys as far as self-promotion. People forget that. He was one of the first wrestlers I remember who had like a standalone website and was using social media to like get over. Obviously, Matt Cardona, Zack Ryder did that to a large degree, especially on YouTube. But even before YouTube, I remember Matt Hardy, especially because of like the real life stuff that happened with him and Lita and Edge and all that. He was like using social media really before anybody else to like keep his name out there and everything. And so Matt's always been really tapped into all of that. Cyclops is better than Wolverine, says Fightful. Fears Busted Open Radio. I saw that Joel was invited to talk to who Bully and Matt and Dreamer, I'm guessing, would have been the crew.
Yeah, Bully was, yeah.
I mean, I think that'd be an interesting conversation. I don't, you know, it's one of those things where like for one, I'm surprised that Matt even really heard about any of this to begin with. But I do respect that he's basically saying like, well, you know, it's coming from Fightful and a lot of people are influenced by what Fightful says and stuff, which it always makes me kind of double think what I'm going to say if people take what I say seriously at all. But I also don't claim to be any kind of journalist, nor do I present myself like that or anything. But once again, I've always liked Matt. I've always liked Jeff. They're my favorite. I think the Hardys are the best tag team of all time. And I actually liked the Hardys Dudley stuff for what it was. Like I'm not one of these haters that I also don't have to watch TNA every single week either and like review it the way that Joel does. I mean, he's probably sick of seeing certain stuff, like, so I just thought it was interesting. I only made it the topic today because I saw it online and I was like, why is Joel getting so much heat for this? Why is Matt still talking about this? We all like John, and I think we all like Matt. And I don't think that, like, I just think it was a comment where, Joel gave his opinion on something. Matt didn't like the opinion. Matt didn't like that it was coming from Fightful. And, but at the end of the day, these are opinion-based podcasts. It'd be the same thing if he went on Busted Open and said something about what he didn't like. How's it not the same exact thing? You know what I mean? Like, there are plenty of takes that Bully Ray has about wrestling that most people, or I shouldn't say most people, plenty of people don't agree with plenty of the stuff Bully Ray says, or plenty of the stuff Tommy Dreamer says, or whatever. But they're Mark Henry or whatever. Like, there's plenty I agree with, plenty I disagree with. But it's like all they're doing is the same thing Joel's doing, and I don't have an issue with that because it's like, well, Busted Open's a big, you're representing Busted Open. It's like, yeah, well, to be fair, I wouldn't have even known you even said this if you didn't work for Busted Open. Just like you wouldn't even known if Joel said it if he wasn't with Fightful. You know what I mean? It's because we have some level of platform, but at this day and age, everyone has a platform. Everyone's got social media. Everyone has access to a YouTube channel. Everyone can say whatever they want about this stuff, including them, including Joel. It seems like just a difference of opinion, and I think that Matt should just kind of move on if he hasn't already. And Joel's been critical about stuff way worse than this over the years when it comes to TNA. You know what I mean? Like, this didn't even seem like that big of a deal. So.
Look, Matt takes the match very personally. I understand that. I've told Joel this. I don't think he should have used the word stupid. I think stupid was a stupid word choice.
That's fair.
Because I think it diminishes the match more than I actually think he wanted to diminish the match. And if you're Matt and you're looking at it of like, okay, why is it stupid? Like, we put a whole lot of hard work into it. It's got this decades of history and all this stuff. Like, I don't think he should have used that word. Maybe he could have just called it bad, and maybe Matt wouldn't have been quite as upset. I don't know. Maybe he would have. Maybe he's like, explain why the match is bad. I don't know. I thought, Matt's initial tweet was like, okay, LOL, that's funny. And then he did more, and I was like, all right, you gotta like let this go, man. It's not that serious. It's okay.
Yeah. He was like quote tweeting random people and their opinions on it. And that's where it's just like,
yeah. And and a lot of the replies to it were like, hey, the match actually did suck. Or, hey, like, why are you still going on about this? Like, I don't think that was helpful either, because it's not like everyone was on his side on this. So it looks like it's passed now, hopefully. That's that. Hopefully everybody can just move on. Joel got invited on Busted Open. He was rightfully not going to take that because they would have just talked over him. Yeah, exactly. Sure. We invited Matt on our show. I didn't hear anything. I think we would have been fair to Matt. I like Matt. I've had good conversations with Matt. We like John Alba. I've had good conversations with John Alba. I consider John Alba a friend. So I think we could have had a fine discussion with things, and maybe we could have settled stuff. I know Joel's been willing to deal with it privately. Like, hey, if Matt wants to reach out, we can talk about it. But Joel has no interest in doing anything publicly. I don't blame him. Hopefully everybody could just move on and we can just find something better to do with our lives.
Yeah, that's fair. And I know we got to wrap up for the game.
Talk about Joel Pearl's opinion.
Hey, well, and Joel's our buddy, and obviously I got Joel's back when it comes down to it. And I'm not anti-Matt Hardy. Like I said, I like Matt a lot. I think that him and Jeff have done so much for the wrestling business, so much for me as a fan. I'll never trash talk those guys. But it is what it is. Yeah, I guess we'll just kind of leave it at that. At the end of the day, I do think that Matt should also maybe give him a little leeway here. And like, Joel is one of the only people that's actually reviewing their show weekly on like any platform. And Joel wants TNA to succeed more than probably anybody in wrestling media. So if he's calling something stupid, yeah, maybe there's a line there that he's kind of crossing as far as like those kind of are fighting words. If I was a wrestler and I was putting my body on the line and someone said what I was doing was stupid, maybe I'd be offended by that. So like I understand Matt from that sense, but it's also like also understand the guy saying it is the only one. Like I can't speak for Sean, I can't speak for Fightful, but like if Joel stopped doing that post show, I don't know if Fightful would even continue doing it with anyone else, honestly. Like that's how much Joel is like going out of his way to continue to review and promote the product. So just for what that's worth.
All right, I'm gonna go jump off of a bridge. Anything?
Good luck. No, that's it. Good luck. Hope Wimby has a bad game.
Apparently he can
goodbye,
dress as
everybody.
a monk, so we're screwed. If he's a monk, he's gonna be non-violent and take out everything on Chet and the entire Thunder team. He's probably gonna have like 50 points. So, all right, Jensen and I will be back next week. Joel and I will be back tomorrow. Follow Jensen on X or Twitter @FightTalk_. Take care, everybody.